Hello and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Stephanie Rivers. You're watching the TriCast on YouTube, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn. Welcome, kings and queens. Come on in to the conversation. If you are new to the conversation, I want to welcome you and invite you back every week to listen and join the conversation live. If you are returning, welcome back. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I go live, you will get notifications and you can see what we're talking about. Because most of what I talk about is something that you want to share with your friends and family. So today, what we're going to talk about is something that I always mention, but it seems like every few years you will have politicians or you will have people in the communities across the United States who try to be sneaky with what they want to do to stop or to curtail our First Amendment rights. So, as most of us are still fixated on the results of the 2020 presidential election, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's trying to push a legislation through the Florida State House that could essentially puts targets on the backs of people, protesters who are exercising their First Amendment rights. So while most of America is paying attention at the front door, trying to see what's going on at the front door, people like Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, they're going through the back door known as the State House, state government, and trying to get things passed. So essentially, Rick DeSantis I keep calling him Rick, but I think it's Ron DeSantis. He has initiated a bill that would expand the powers of the Stand Your Ground law to include using deadly force against protesters, rioters, and looters. So before I get too far into this, who's to say who is a law-abiding protester who is exercising his or her First Amendment rights versus somebody who is rioting or breaking up stuff, or versus somebody who's broken in or waited till someone broke in and is stealing stuff? Who's to say who is who and which person is doing what? Would that be the person who shot them dead and now they're the only one to tell the story? So I wanted to put that out there first because I tend, I get caught up and I get emotional and then I tend to forget, but that's the first thing. But essentially, we were introduced, most of us were introduced to the Stand Your Ground law when Trayvon Martin was murdered by that guy named George, can't remember his last name, because he essentially used the Stand Your Ground law during his murder trial of Trayvon Martin to get away with murder. And then it turns out that once we started looking at laws across the country, in your state, it might be called Stand Your Ground. In other states, it might be called the Castle Doctrine. But essentially, it's saying you have the right to protect yourself from bodily harm. So what Governor DeSantis has decided to do, because he and all these other privileged people, politicians, they are sick and tired of us exercising our First Amendment rights by protesting the modern day lynching, by protesting bully, liar, killer cops by protesting racial injustices, by protesting an unjust justice system. They're tired of it. So now they're trying to pass laws that will essentially curtail or keep you from exercising your rights by giving other people the right to physically harm you. Now, never mind, again, that nobody's on the scene to say one way or another if you are just protesting or rioting or looting. But now they want to, it's already a conflict with the stand your ground, because in most states that have a stand your ground law, you can only use deadly force against someone if they are trying to harm you, your person, if they're trying to harm another person in your household, or you're trying to defend yourself against bodily harm. Now, Governor DeSantis wants to extend the law to say that if they are trying to damage your property, then you have the right to shoot somebody and or possibly kill somebody over some property. And a lot of the laws that are enacted stop short of allowing a person to harm someone. If they're trying to steal your car or break in your house, they have to be physically in your house or physically assaulting you before you are allowed to use deadly force against them, and then you stand your ground or the castle doctrine as your defense if you are brought up on charges. But in Florida, they just do things differently. They don't wear masks. They don't want to protect themselves or their neighbors from possibly getting COVID. That's why they got so many cases. They are trying to enhance the law, and we, hopefully, the people in Florida will not let this stand. So why is it that people see voter fraud when there is no evidence of voter fraud, but they don't see racism when there's plenty of evidence of racism? Why is that? Why is it that people who are just exercising their rights to lawful assembly, to freedom of speech, to protest, why is it that people like Governor DeSantis think that that's a problem? Because if it was his children, or if it was his relatives, or if it was somebody who looked like him that was getting brutalized and beaten, I'm sure he would want somebody to make some changes. So if you live in Florida, make sure that you contact your legislator representative and let them know that this is not something that you want to allow to be become a law. Now, according to the Miami Herald, DeSantis's new is called the anti-mob legislation, and in addition to expanding the stand your ground law, it also what did it say? It said it also, the bill would also strip local governments of the ability to defund law enforcement agencies. So wait a minute. So now you're going to take away I pay taxes. If I live in Florida, or I live in Texas, and my taxes go to fund the local police department. Now, if you live in Florida and your taxes, which they do, go to fund your local police department, now there's going to be a state law that says you can't account for, or you can't decide how they use your money. That's what they call a dictatorship. That's what they call, that's why the Boston Tea Party happened, because it was taxation without representation. So if you know anybody who lives in Florida or goes to school in Florida, or if you know any legislature, state legislator, I think you should definitely be concerned about people who want to take your tax dollars, but don't want you to have any say so on how those tax dollars are used. It also says this proposed expansion of the stand your ground law includes mandatory sentencing for striking a law enforcement officer and punishment for those that organize public demonstration. So you are, again, exercising your First Amendment rights, and you could be held criminally liable for organizing a public demonstration. Now, is this with a permit or without a permit? Because last time I checked, you could get a permit to have a public demonstration, first of all. Second of all, if you strike a police officer, you could get a mandatory sentence. So never mind that they beating the hell out of you and you don't have any, and you're unarmed. Never mind that they shoot you, shoot you down. See, this is crazy. So why is it that people feel like they have to protest? It's probably because when they do speak to their state legislators or their Congress people, they don't get any response, or they get a response that if they're there to represent your interests, then they should be voting and putting forth bills that represent what you want them to do. And so if you have a legislator, and that's why it's also important to vote. Okay, some of us didn't want to vote didn't want to participate in the presidential election, but there are so many other state and local elections that were going on at the same time. You are doing yourself and your community and your family a disservice if you don't participate in the process, because then you end up with people like Governor DeSantis, who now feels like, you know what, I'm tired of y'all protesting. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put forth a bill that says if you organize a protest, you could be punished. If you hit a police officer, even though he knocked the hell out of you and you were just exercising your First Amendment rights, you could get a mandatory sentence. And also, it is going to allow you, this bill is going to allow your state representatives to block you from defunding the police. That's scary. I know I quit really liking Florida after the jury allowed the George guy to get away with murdering Trayvon Martin. But stuff like this is everybody should be upset, no matter what race or creed or nationality or gender or age. Everybody should be upset about this, because today it's going to be our interest that is being infringed upon. Tomorrow it's going to be somebody else's interests that are going to be infringed upon. And you know what? If we don't realize that we have more similarities than we have differences, then they're going to divide and conquer. So that's something that everybody should be concerned about. And before I go, this past weekend, last Friday, the killers, the McMichaels, son and father McMichaels in near Savannah, Georgia, who killed Ahmaud Arbery as he was jogging, minding his own business. They had a bond hearing and the judge denied their bond. So good for the judge. They've been in jail since they've been held without bond since March, I think, even though this happened, I think it happened in February or March. And then it took them a couple of months to even arrest these killers. And so they now came up for a bond hearing. So they've been in jail for at least 7 months or so. So it was denied, and I'm glad. And so we know that their defense is going to be that they were standing their ground. Believe it or not, they're saying that Ahmaud attacked them. So you were driving after him in a truck with a gun, jumped out, confronted him with a rifle, and then when he tries to defend himself, then you shoot and kill him in the street like a dog. And then your defense is you were standing your ground. And that's why everybody needs to have a license to carry. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. And don't just have the license, but carry. Okay. And so anyway, it also came out in this court hearing of the McMichaels that while Aubrey was laying dead or dying in the street, the father McMichaels, who used to work with the prosecutor's office in that county, called his friend, who was the former DA of that county, asking for advice, left a voicemail saying something like, hey, this is me, and we just got into a situation and we want some advice, call me back. So you mean that, so that was their attempt to tamper with the prosecution of this case. So that is another reason why they were not allowed bond, because clearly from the next second after they shot and killed him, murdered him in the street, they tried to start their tampering tactics from that moment on. And so the judge said that they, because of all of that, and because of what they did and how they did it, and making the phone call and all of that, and the postings on social media, they will not be getting a bond. And so I don't think they probably set a trial date, but it's going to be in 2021. So these fools could be in jail awaiting their hearing for at least a year, and that's good enough for them, because there's plenty of people, Black and brown people, who get caught up in the system, and they should be given a way to post bond, but they make the bond so high they can't afford it, and they have to stay in jail. And so if that can happen to them, then these racist people need to stay in jail where they are, and they can await trial right like everybody else. And so if you live in Florida, so let me stay in Georgia right now. If you live in Georgia, in the Savannah area where the McMichaels shot and killed Ahmaud Arbery, make sure you stay abreast of what's going on with this case. And when it goes to court, you be there to let them know they're not doing this. They're not trying this case in silence. They're trying it in front of the millions of people who are watching, just like we did with Breonna Taylor. That's one thing. Number two, there is a Senate runoff that's going to be in January, and he's a pastor. His name is Pastor. My light just fell. Sorry. Pastor Raphael Warnock. I think that's what his name is. This brother is running for the Congress. Hold on, let me see how this is going to look. He's running for Congress, and I think I'm getting two. Let me make sure my little. Okay. He's running for Congress, and if you live in that area, make sure you find out about, he's a pastor, last name Warnock, Warnock, I think, Warnock. Look him up, see how you can support him, and get him on the polls. Get him elected at the polls if you live in Georgia. So let's go back to Florida. Florida, this cannot stand. call your representatives and let them know that you do not want the expansion of the stand your ground law, especially if it also includes not being able to defund the police. And it's not just about being able to defund the police. It's about being able to say what happens to your tax dollars. I bet you if you quit paying them tax dollars, they'll come and get you. But now all of a sudden, they want to take your money and don't want you to have any say on how it's being used. More of us need to be running for office and quit sitting at the house talking about it like me. So let me do the talking, y'all do the walking. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any feedback for me, you can reach me. You might be sending me some comments now, but because it is a TriCast, I don't always see all the comments until later. So at any rate, to find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. It's at eurweb.com. Thanks and have a super day.